One day, me and my very good friend were on the way to kickboxing practice as per usual. Now, at around 5 o'clock in the evening, I would get my gym bag ready, take my bicycle out of the shed, get it ready, and then cycle for around 1.5 miles to my friend's house, where then we would cycle for another mile from his house to kickboxing practice. Now, there was nothing out of the ordinary, the weather was fine, everything was okay. I get to his house, he comes outside, we greet each other and get ready to go for another mile to kickboxing practice. Now, as we are cycling for approximately 2 minutes, he is ahead of me for maybe around 100 meters, 200 meters, and I shout to him, "Wait up," in my own native language, which was Lithuanian at the time. So I say, "Wait up." And as I said that, at the corner of my eye, I can see a group of young people, a lot older than me at the time actually, because this story is from way back. But those were kids of around 14 to 16 years of age, maybe the eldest was 17. At the corner of my eye, I can see them walking. And they were dressed in tracksuit bottoms, not really elegant looking kids. None of them were. But as I say, "Wait up," I see the whole bunch of them rush towards me, and they knock me off of my bicycle onto the road. My bicycle is now on the road. I have my kickboxing bag over my shoulder. It throws me off balance. I go onto the road with my bicycle, and they begin kicking and punching me from all sides. There must have been like 5 or 6 of them, maybe even 7 of them, all continuously beating me in the head, kicking me from all sides. And all I could do was just go like this and crunch up into a ball where there was less possibility of me getting hit. Now, I couldn't defend myself, obviously, against these 7 fellow kids. Even though I was on the way to kickboxing practice, I didn't really get to practice kickboxing. But they were beating me from all sides, and this beating went on for maybe a minute. But this was the longest minute of my life, because during this minute, I was completely unaware of my surroundings, and all I could think of is, this is it. This is the time when I will die. Now, I felt no pain. I felt no sadness. I felt no anything. I actually had a very clear thought, or more clear mind. I really thought of nothing else but, this is it. That's me done. That's life. No more. And if you can think about the situation from an outside perspective, it seems frightening if you were to think of that happening to you later on today. You would think that this is pretty much the worst thing you can think of. It's so unpleasant, you don't want it, it's so unpredictable. You can pretty much die if it goes wrong. And luckily, at this point, I didn't die. Now, actually, to finish off the story, one of the guys from that group that was beating me rushed towards my friend, because my friend from a distance was looking at what's happening, and he was in complete shock. He was looking at the situation and just didn't know what to do. He was helpless. Not that he could come over and help me against 6 or 7 people. But this one guy that was actually the eldest rushed over to my friend in literally sprinting, and while my friend was on his bicycle, the guy came up to him and punched him right in the eye and gave him the biggest black eye ever. Like, my friend had a black eye for at least 2 weeks after that. And after then, I was in complete shock still. I felt no pain because I was probably still pumped up with adrenaline. So me and my friends, we called our parents. We went to the police station that was actually quite close to us at the time. And to mention, thank you to the individual that stopped the whole thing, because a car stopped along the way because it was still daylight. You could still see. It wasn't like dark, but you could still see. A car stopped along the way because I was on the road. A car stopped along the way, and they opened the window and started shouting something. I can't really remember what it was, but he started shouting something, and those kids ran away really quickly before anyone could catch them. Now, this is the whole story. Now, they didn't find the kids, nothing happened, and I was around 12 at the time. So those kids that were beating on us were at least 4 or 3 years older, which is actually quite a big significant difference, because from 12 to 14 is like, you know, a puberty amount of difference. It's like, you know, 12 you're still not like hitting puberty, but 15 you're already like bigger, you know, you're stronger. So anyways, it was a frightening situation from an outside perspective, but for me the situation was fine. I accepted it at the time because I had nothing else to do but accept it. And there were many situations in my life quite similar to that one, but this just sticks out to me the most. There were many situations where I was very close to death. And overall, many situations in life happen where they are out of your control. And you are fearing those things so much. You're fearing those things happening to you or to your family or to anyone else. You fear them happening. But when they do happen, it takes you very little time to actually get yourself accustomed to the situation and to actually accept it. To actually be like, okay, well, this is life now. The same way when you're very close to death, you go, okay, well, this is death now. And this is how things are going to be. And you accept it very quickly. But for some reason, for some odd reason, we are in constant fear of something unpredictable happening to us. We are constantly afraid of the next thing that is going to happen to us, and we're in constant anxiety before this thing even happens. Now, isn't this very silly? Because what is the purpose of us being constantly anxious to something that is completely fictional, hasn't happened yet? And we're in complete anxiety over this that hasn't happened yet, but then when it does happen, we are completely fine in a very little amount of time. This also is very closely linked to something that I'm very familiar with. Now, I am somewhat of a control freak. Less now than I was before, and I will explain everything in this video. And some of you are also control freaks. Some of you are very unaccustomed to giving up control. You always want to be in control because it makes you feel good, and it is your way of being like controlling of the unpredictable. But the unpredictable still happens. So I have a list of things here written down that I want to go through. Now, I'm a person that gets distracted quite often, so I want to keep this somewhat in a linear sequence that I can not get distracted and go through each point individually. Now, being in control is draining, physically and mentally, because when you're in constant fear of something happening that is fictional, when you're constantly trying to be in control, you're mentally draining yourself and also physically draining yourself, because obviously your mental processing is also a physical process to some extent. You drain your energy that way. And yeah, we're trying to control our external factors, which we have no control over. This is the whole point. So when we give up control and we disattach ourselves from the external things that we cannot control, then we can learn a lot of things from the unpredictability that happens in life. We can also learn to go with the flow. You hear about this phrase, go with the flow, and people just tell you, go with the flow. And it's like this thing they tell you to do, but you don't know how to do it. But going with the flow is actually one of the best things you can do in life, because giving up control lets you figure out the whole new dimension of life that you didn't know even existed. Now, I want to jump straight into the reason why you may be a control freak. I'll give you more reasons actually before I go into the reason why you may be a control freak. I'll give you more instances to just familiarize yourself with what a control freak is like and what extent it could go to. So, I am afraid of flying. I'm afraid of flying airplanes, going into aircraft and flying for any amount of time. This is the moment where I'm not in control, because I completely surrender to the pilot and to whatever the aircraft is made of, and it terrifies me, because this is pretty much the only time where I feel not in control. Because whenever I sit in the airplane, that's it. I have no control, I can't do anything, I can't stop the aircraft, I cannot tell the pilot to stop and land anywhere. I'm not in control. and this terrifies me. Lately, a few weeks ago, I was on a flight that was quite turbulent and the flight wasn't good, and I was spazzing out. I was really afraid of the flight, and I mean, this is how it works. I was afraid because I was not in control. Now, whenever I am in control, whenever I am driving, and if I was to even fly the aircraft myself, if I was accustomed to airplanes, it's not that I'm afraid of airplanes. I'm afraid of someone else being in control of my life. This is what I'm afraid of. If I was trained to be a pilot, I would not be afraid to fly the airplane because I am flying it. I trust myself. And if I blunder, if I make a mistake, then it's my fault for my own death. I don't want anyone else to be responsible for my death. But if that death was to happen, if the plane was to go and crash, I'm pretty sure on the way down, as the plane is crashing, even though someone else is piloting the plane, I would accept death. Just the same way when I was 12 years old, the bunch of people came over, attacked me, it was out of my control, I couldn't do anything apart from just go like this, and I accepted death the same way. But I'm still afraid of the circumstance where the plane might crash. I will explain why this is the case. Why are we afraid of these things? Why are we afraid of these externals? Now, also to say, I went on a trip to my home country, Lithuania. A few years ago, me and my family went on a car journey to Lithuania, which is around 2,000 miles, approximately. Now, we didn't stop anywhere for sleeping. We literally just did the journey for 35 hours of driving, continuous driving for 35 hours, and I didn't sleep for a single hour. Why? Because I'm afraid of giving up control. Even though my dad was driving the car, I was still afraid because I am not driving the car. Even though I would be unable to drive it for 35 hours, my dad was driving the car, and I could not come to terms with him driving the car, even though he's a way more experienced driver. He is a truck driver by trade. He's more experienced than me. He knows how to drive. I could still not give up control, and I could still not trust an unpredictable event of happening where potentially the car would crash. I wanted to be awake for the whole journey because that slight chance of me noticing something that he didn't notice, like a car coming our way or whatever, like something unpredictable, where I could be like, oh, yo, like, you know, there's a car coming. Obviously that didn't happen. But those are the cases where I really wanted to be in control and I just couldn't let up. Now, even something as silly as when my girlfriend wants to do the dishes, I say, here, listen, I'm going to do the dishes because for some reason I want to be in control of that because I think that I'm going to do them better or whatever. Even though I might not be doing them better, I still want to be in control of something. And this is basically described as severe independence. You are severely independent, and if you are familiar with these things that I just described, then I'm telling you the whole reason of why you are severely independent and unable to give up control is because you may have an avoidant attachment style. Now, this is one thing that psychologists came up with. Psychotherapists, psychologists, whatever you want to call them, they came up with 4 main attachment styles. One is anxious attachment style, one is avoidant attachment style, which is the reason why you're a control freak. The third is irrelevant, and the fourth is also irrelevant. But the main thing we're going to focus on in this video is avoidant attachment style. Now, this is something that me and you may have if you're familiar with the circumstances that I talked about in this video. Your inability to give up control. So, how is it formed? How is avoidant attachment formed? Well, I want to be completely accurate, so I'm going to read from my telephone. I'm going to read all of the attachment styles that are written down, all of the reasons for this attachment style, why it's formed, how it's formed. I will go into complete detail about all of this right now. So, avoidant attachment style typically develops in childhood as a result of caregivers who are emotionally unavailable, unresponsive, or inconsistent in meeting the child's emotional needs. Here are some examples of how avoidant attachment style can develop in childhood. Number 1, emotional neglect. A child whose caregivers consistently neglect their emotional needs may learn to suppress their emotions and become self-reliant, overly independent. For example, if a baby cries, you being the baby, for attention or comfort, and is consistently ignored, they may eventually stop seeking comfort and learn to self-soothe by suppressing their distress. So this is how you become independent, as a child even. Inconsistent responsiveness. This is number 2. Inconsistency in the caregiver's responses can also lead to an avoidant attachment. For instance, if a child caregiver is sometimes warm and responsive, but at other times distant or dismissive, the child may become uncertain about whether their needs will be met and may develop self-reliance as a coping mechanism. The battery died. Lovely. Well, anyways, number 3. Overly critical or intrusive caregiving. Caregivers who are overly critical, intrusive, or demand too much emotional expression from a child can create an environment where the child feels overwhelmed or criticized for their emotions. So in response, the child may learn to suppress their emotions to avoid criticism or rejection. Caregivers' own avoidant attachment. Now this is the most common scenario for your attachment style, which is avoidant attachment style, is because of your own caregiver's attachment style. It may be your mum or your dad that also had the same avoidant attachment style. So this is time for you to think about and reflect about your parents' attachment style, if they are also control freaks and maybe you got that from them. If your dad or your mother are control freaks and they're also sharing some kind of characteristics that you have about constantly wanting to be in control, reflect on it, because this is the most common thing for you to completely mimic your own parents' attachment style, the avoidant attachment style. And it happens for all attachment styles that you can name, which is 4. Anyways, caregivers' own avoidant attachment. Sometimes parents or caregivers may have their own avoidant attachment styles, which they unintentionally pass on to their children. If a caregiver is uncomfortable with emotional closeness and avoids emotional expression themselves, the child may model this behavior. Number 5, parental absence. If a child experiences external periods of parental absence, whether due to work commitments, divorce, or other reasons, they may learn to become self-reliant and not rely on their parents for emotional support. This can contribute to the development of avoidant attachment. Number 6, intrusion of adult issues. In some cases, children may be exposed to adult issues, such as marital conflicts, parental substance abuse, or other stressors that make them feel responsible for their caregiver's emotions. This can lead to a sense of emotional burden and a preference for emotional distance. So this is why you have an avoidant attachment style. This is how it's formed in childhood. Now, in my opinion, number 4, which is your own caregivers, your own parents' attachment style that was passed on to you, is the most common reason for your attachment style, for your whole control freak scenario thing, that you always want to be in control, is because your parents have passed that on to you. Another thing that I think is very common is when substance abuse happens in a family, and it's quite frequent where a parent will drink alcohol or maybe consume some other substance. And whenever they do, they become different. For a child, this is so strange, because if you imagine your parent who is completely sober being a certain way to you, let's say they are being very avoidant of you and being dismissive, but then after evening strikes, they have a couple of glasses of wine or beer or whatever the liquor of choice they have, and they become a bit more free. Their tongue loosens up and they become more flamboyant. They become more expressive and more loving in some cases. So you may experience a little bit of a difference as a child. So when your parent is sober, it's like they're mean to you, but then when they have a bit of drink in themselves, and you don't know they have drink, you don't know drink exists, you don't know alcohol exists because you're a baby, you're a child. They have a bit of drink and they are completely different to you. So you just don't know what's happening. They're nice to you 1 minute and then they're really mean to you the next minute. So you're like, what the hell's going on? And this for a child is so confusing. You just go like, well, if they're giving me unpredictable signals, if they're being unpredictable as a whole, then I'm just going to become self-reliant. So this is what happens very commonly with avoidant attachment styles. This is avoidant attachment styles explained in a nutshell. If you want to find out more about attachment styles and just avoidant attachment styles in general, please consider going to the link down below. I offer coaching calls where you can speak one-to-one and we can discuss your attachment style one-to-one, and I can help you more individually, because this is all individual. If I can help you individually, then we are more likely to resolve problems and more rapidly, more quickly. So now that you have a common understanding or a basic understanding of how an avoidant attachment style works, and if you feel like this may have been a part of your childhood or your upbringing, and you feel like, yeah, the examples that I gave you at the start of the video of like you being a control freak, you may have your complete own reasons and own circumstances when you're a control freak. You have your own life. You're a control freak in different ways than I am. So you may think, well, yeah, I'm a control freak in all these instances, and my childhood was a bit weird and it was a bit like unpredictable, and my parents do have these characteristics that you're talking about, and they are a little bit of control freaks themselves. So yeah, now you understand the whole concept of avoidant attachment styles. But now the most important part of this whole video is, how do you solve this avoidant attachment style? What do you do with it? Do you just live with it? Do you just like accept it and this is you for the rest of your life? Is it like you accepting death or whatever? No. Everything can be fixed in life. Everything has its way. Everything has a remedy. So I will go into a little bit of detail on how you can potentially fix this avoidant attachment style. Now, the easiest way to do it is obviously individual help. Like I explained, if I gave you a coaching call, if I individually try to listen to how you're operating, how your mind works, there's more chances of this happening and solving. But if you're not ready for this step, I'm going to give you as much as I can give you right here. So I have notes here. So number one, how you can solve your avoidant attachment style is, drum roll, acceptance. Acceptance is something that you are maybe familiar with, maybe not. But if you accept that you have this attachment style, that this is how your life is right now, if you accept this is 50% of the job already done. Because if you accept it, and if you're not in denial, if you're accepted and are ready to do a bit of work on yourself, if you're ready to like challenge yourself, to change yourself, because like I explained at the start of the video, there are so many benefits to not being a control freak, to not have this avoidant attachment style, that it's just crazy. You have so many more doors opening to you in life that you can then choose and pick from what door you want to open and delve into whatever you want to delve into. It's very important that you solve this right away, because it will change your life for the better. So accept it. Accept that you are like this, if you are like this, and start changing. The other thing that I want to really mention is forgiveness. Forgiveness is the most important part after acceptance, maybe even more important than acceptance. Now, what do I mean by forgiveness? Forgive your parents. Your parents obviously brought you into this world. Maybe they even gave you their attachment style to you. But this is so common, and it happens to every single one of us. We all have different attachment styles, we all have different lives, but you have to forgive your parents for giving you this attachment style, for having the upbringing that you had. Your upbringing might have been fine. You may have zero bad memories from your childhood, and you still need to forgive your parents. You still need to mentally say, I forgive my parents for what has happened. Because even if you think this is not a big deal, and it could be not a big deal, it could be just something very minor, but still you need to forgive your parents, because forgiveness is a step of change. You need to forgive before you can change. This is something that is very vital. If you don't forgive your parents, and if you hold a crutch, if you are a person that holds a crutch on your parents or holds something against them, then you will not change, because you will not get past the step of forgiveness. So if you pass these 2 steps, so acceptance and then forgiveness, if you pass these 2 steps, then you're able to delve into more change. So, mindfulness and meditation, something that I'm quite familiar with. I've been practicing mindfulness and meditation for quite a while now. Been trying all different kinds of methods, and different methods work for everyone. I do not want to get into all these different meditation techniques in this video because this will take me a whole hour to do. So find the meditation techniques video down in the I'll link them in the description below, or even just find them on my channel. You will find a video that says like meditation for beginners or something like that. So do find your own preference for meditation and mindfulness. Different things work for different people, so please find your own way to become more familiar with yourself, to find your own way of self-reflection, because this is the most important thing. For you to be mindful of your own body, your own mind, to meditate on your thoughts, to meditate on your life, and to reflect upon your life and what has happened in your life. These are the most important things that you can do, because not only will you try and solve your avoidant attachment style, but you'll also figure out a lot of things along the way about your own life. So mindfulness and meditation are things that I really recommend. And this is basically the third most important thing. These are all important. I can't give you a specific number, to be honest. And like, number 1 is acceptance, and number 2 is forgiving your parents. Number 3 is meditation. I can't give you these numbers. They do not have a specific relevance chart or whatever. They're all equally as important, because without one, you cannot have the other. So I'm going to number them anyways, but make your own mind up about how relevant it is to you. And also self-reflection comes directly linked to mindfulness and meditation. If you do not self-reflect, you're not going to change. Self-awareness. Self-reflection. This is number 2. I have these things written down. Self-awareness, self-reflection, same thing. Become aware of who you are, what you are, and how your mind works. It's very important. Number 3. Incrementally expose yourself to a situation where you have less control. So, what does this mean? I'm not telling you to, if you're afraid of water and you're afraid of heights, I'm not telling you to go out, find the highest cliff that you can find, and find a shallow pool of water underneath that cliff, and go practice jumping from the highest cliff into the shallow bit of water. I'm not telling you to do that, because obviously if you have an avoidant attachment style and you're a control freak, I'm not telling you to go outside into like New York where there's like a million people. If you're afraid of people, I'm not telling you to go expose yourself into the millions of people, into the crowds, and stand naked and shout something. I'm not telling you to do that. This is not going to happen. You're not going to do that. So the most beneficial way of actually solving this is incremental exposure, gradual exposure to whatever freaks you out, whatever you're afraid of. Gradually expose yourself to these things. Let's say you are afraid of spiders, okay? You're terrified of spiders, even the smallest one. My girlfriend is terrified of spiders, so I don't know, she might be watching this video and being like, oh, well, this is not gonna work. I'm afraid of spiders. But listen, you might be afraid of a spider that's like 1 millimeter big, but you have to expose yourself to that one spider and get the balls to pick that spider up. Maybe start with other insects that don't freak you out, that are closely related to spiders. You can always find a way. But incrementally increase the spider size that you're going to pick up and try and handle. You could first try and pick up the spider by the web. If you know how a spider hangs down a web, try and pick up the web and then move it around and throw it outside instead of killing it. So, gradual exposure. If you are afraid of deep water, right? I'm not telling you to jump into the deep water straight away. Start gradually where you can stand, then try and go up to here, and then go back to where it's safe, and then gradually expose yourself to it. So whatever tends to freak you out, whatever you feel like you have to have control over, try and not have control over these things. This is literally logical, right? This is so logical and so, what's the word? Evident. But this is so clear to what you have to do, but I still have to explain that you have to gradually expose yourself to these things to heal from these things. Because gradual exposure will make you okay with it. For me, I'm afraid of flying. I cannot stand being in an airplane. Well, you can't stand in an airplane, you said. But anyways, I can't stand being in an airplane and I just have no control. So what is the solution to me? What do I do with it? Well, I have to gradually expose myself to it. If I start to frequently fly, I will just gradually become okay with it, because I will become accustomed to it. I'll be like, okay, well, I didn't die this time, I didn't die another time. Let's say I've had 100 flights this year. Well, probably after 100 flights in a year, I'm not going to be afraid of flying, and I'll accept that, okay, well, the probability is actually quite low and it happens very infrequently. I'm okay with flying, blah, blah, blah. How I could start doing that is maybe take a flight that's like a half an hour, like an inter-country flight, something that's a domestic flight that we call it. Let's say you fly a half an hour and you're like, okay, well, that was half an hour. And then you go to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and so on. If you are afraid of somebody else driving as a passenger like I am, what you could also do is tell them to drive for 5 minutes while you're a passenger. If you cannot stand someone literally driving a car while you are a passenger because you have to be in complete control, you have to drive the car, then just tell them to drive for 1 minute, take complete responsibility in your life and just say, okay, drive for 1 minute, even though you're completely afraid of it, drive for 1 minute, and then maybe next time drive for 2 minutes, and so on. It's logical, complete logic, and yeah, just gradual exposure. This is what you do. Yes, that's about it. I didn't expect to finish these helpful tips here so quickly, because I thought there was more. I'm very disorganized, as you can see. But this is how these videos are supposed to work in a way. I don't want there to be like a complete script and me like, I don't know, putting edits everywhere and just, completely messing up the video with dopamine and cuts and trying to narrow it down. Like, this video is probably half an hour. I could cut this video down to 15 minutes easily. And you would not get as much value from this video if it was 15 minutes, because your brain takes time to process things. Your brain takes time to be like, okay, he's saying that while I'm rambling about something. Your brain is still thinking about the thought or something that I've said before. So these videos, believe me, are more helpful than the ones that you can see on YouTube that are overly edited, overly dopaminized, whatever that word is, I just made it up. But trust me, these videos are more helpful. I do not want to get into the habit of editing videos, even if I mispronounce a word or say something wrong. I do not want to cut that out. I want to be genuine and keep it in. I feel like YouTube is completely missing out, and the whole platform is missing out from being genuine. No one is genuine these days. If they make a mistake or fart on a video, they cut it out. Oh, I farted. Oh, like, keep it genuine. If you are a human being, it is better for you to watch something that is unedited, that is genuine, that is clear. If someone makes a mistake, you will relate to the mistake. You are also a human being. If I make a mistake, you're like, okay, well, mistakes happen. This guy did this in the video. I can relate to that. But we see too much of disingenuousness. I don't know if that's a word as well. But we have seen too much stuff that is completely scripted in life. We see too many movies, Instagrams, YouTube videos, like TV programs. Everything is perfected. All the actors are cherry picked. They are all wearing makeup. They're all like, all the mistakes are cut out, and if they're not, then they're intentional, and you know that they're intentional. And you as a human being might just start feeling like, well, no one else makes mistakes in life, and you don't know that. Your subconscious brain does not know that people do not make mistakes. Like, yeah, you know that right now, that people make mistakes, but while you're watching it, you may become a little bit anxious about your own self and be like, well, everyone seems so perfect and I'm not perfect, so what's going on? This is why these videos are very important for you to watch. If I make a mistake, that's good. I want to make mistakes. I don't care. My camera cut out. I told you that my camera cut out. This is a bit of a rant for the end of the video, but this is important for you to grasp. If you are a person that watches content that is overly edited and disingenuous, overly scripted, stop. It's messing up your brain. So this is my genuine side. I want to remain genuine. I want to attract an audience that is capable of watching a genuine video, that is capable of paying attention and keeping eye contact with me, like a conversation that person to person has. That's what I want. I want my subscribers to be able to watch a video for half an hour, completely not be distracted, go on their phones and scroll Instagram or whatever. I want you to pay attention. This is going to be good for your brain. It's educational. At least I try to make it educational. And it's good for you. Other things, not so much. I can't be overly critical about other people because I don't know how much exists. I don't know every single content creator. But I speak for myself and what I see online. I do not see genuine people making videos where they're unedited, because they do not do as well as the videos that are edited, because more money or whatever. I don't care about money. I don't care. Anyways, that's enough of a rant. If you have more questions, comment down below. If you like my content, like it on the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to get more individual help where I talk to you like this, like genuinely, like a friend, like someone who understands, consider going on the description. It's Calendly or whatever it's called. It's like a service where you can book a coaching call with me. It's very affordable. A 1 hour coaching call. You can book more if you want. And we can resolve any problems that you may be having. So thank you for watching this video. I hope you can completely solve your avoidant attachment style and slightly go towards a more secure attachment style. And yeah, become less of a control freak, because it comes with many, many benefits that you don't know of. And when you start to come out of your control freak mindset, you will notice how much things are actually happening in life and how much benefits you actually get from being a person that just can go with the flow. That's it from me. Thanks for watching once again, and as always, peace. One thing I completely forgot to mention is the impact that avoidant attachment styles have on your relationships, your romantic relationships, or the relationship you have with your children even. So if you want me to make a separate video on how avoidant attachment styles affect relationships, please comment down below. And one thing that I forgot to also mention is, if you do not fix your avoidant attachment style, or your complete fear of the unpredictable, or your control freakism, whatever you want to call it, you will pass that on to your children if you have children in the future. So these are things to note. Again, thank you for watching. Peace.